This lesson is all about credit and borrowing. By the end of this lesson, you should understand the basics of borrowing and credit, know what affects your credit score, and realize how your credit rating affects you, especially in your financial life. So first of all, want to understand borrowing and credit. Maybe you've loaned something to somebody and never gotten it back. I think we've all had that feeling. There's a lot of quotes out there about this, saying that, yeah, if you loan money to friends, you could lose both, the money and the friend. People who do borrow sometimes forget that they owe you things. There's no incentive for them to pay you back if it was just based on trust and no interest or anything. So like this quote here says, you could lose both. And sometimes it's best to just part with people who won't honor their debts. There's even comedy routines about this, about people spending money when they owe you money. So debt is all around us. And along with debt comes credit. And the two are closely related. Credit is simply defined as the ability to borrow money when you need it. And there are lots of cases when you will probably need it, right? You want to purchase a car or a home, you're probably going to need to borrow money. Not too many people can pay cash for purchases that large. If you wanted to launch a business, you need to take out a SBA or Small Business Administration loan. Many students had to pay for their college education with loans. And sometimes if you just want to buy a gift for somebody and don't have cash up front, you can use a credit card or pay for it on an installment plan. But credit is all around us. It's not just credit cards, it's your credit rating for all kinds of borrowing. It's very important. So here's some basics about credit and borrowing, right? It takes a lender, somebody who has money available to lend, and they're going to benefit from collecting not just the principal dollar amount that they lent you, but interest collected on that dollar amount. Now, the risks for them are that they can't use the money once they lend it out to you. They don't get to collect interest from somebody else. They don't get to enjoy the benefits of spending that money. They're also taking a huge risk that it won't be paid back because debts sometimes aren't paid back. You, the borrower, you get the benefit of using someone else's money for either purchasing something or a large loan like for a house or a car like we talked about. And so that's a huge benefit. You can buy things with other people's money. Now, the downside for you is that you don't have much money. That's why you're borrowing. And sometimes it's harder to borrow when you don't have much money. That's the paradox of it all. You've got to pay back both the interest and the principal amount. And you don't have a lot of money when you start because that's why you're borrowing it. Now, you also run the risk of getting a bad credit rating if you don't pay it back. So there's some risks for the borrower. There's some risks for the lender. Okay, and it's up to the borrower to make sure you pay back not only the principal but the interest. And so this is how credit and borrowing work. All right, a couple key concepts here. Principal is the total amount borrowed, whether it's a small amount, whether it's a large amount. And this could be for credit cards, which is basically an unsecured loan. They don't take any collateral from you. There's not too much paperwork. They're just trusting you to pay your credit card bills. If it's for a big loan, like a college loan or a house or a car, you're going to process some paperwork, but the principal amount is the amount borrowed. And when you make a credit card purchase, you're borrowing that money. They are paying for that purchase, Visa or MasterCard. They're paying for that purchase with their own money, trusting that you will pay them back. Okay. All borrowing, well, almost all borrowing has an interest rate. It's based on a percentage, okay, and that is almost always an annual percentage rate. And your interest payments are calculated by taking the principal amount times the interest rate as a decimal number times the time that the loan is extended to you. So here's an example. Suppose you took out a $1,000 loan, 5% interest for 1 year. Okay, your interest payment is going to be principal times interest times time, and the time will be in years. So it's the principal is $1,000, the interest rate is 0.05. That's 5% expressed as a decimal. And in 1 year's time, you will owe $50 interest. So at the end of 1 year, you got to pay them back the principal, $1,000 plus $50 in interest. You would pay them $1,050. And 5% really isn't too much. Okay, it's a good rate. Rates are low right now, but that's how borrowing works. Okay, for a credit card, a lot of credit card companies will charge 20% interest, and you won't pay it back at the end of the year. You got to make monthly payments. Okay, so this is just a simple example. That's basically how credit and borrowing work. Now, your ability to borrow is based largely on your FICO score. It's a credit score that is calculated by Fair Isaac Company, and this is an indication of how likely you are to pay your debts. If you don't have a credit score, it's probably because you're too young, but these credit scores can range from 350, which is not good at all, to 850, which is excellent. If you've got a score in the 700s or above, you've got a great credit rating. Now, what determines this is these credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. They're three national credit bureaus, and they take into account your payment history on debts you owe, the total amount you owe, how long you've established and maintained a credit history. So if you're young, you may not have much of a credit rating, and whether or not you're applying for new credit, like if you're applying for new credit cards every month, that may not help you. And also the types of credit you're getting. Okay, home loans, car loans, department store credit cards, Visa credit cards, they look at all of these things. Okay, so without going into too much detail, we want to make you aware that you do have a credit report, all right, by these three companies. Now, the good news is you can see that credit report, right? It's about you. You should have rights to do that. So you can get one of these at annualcreditreport.com or calling this number, and they will tell you all about how to see what's on your credit report. This is a lot of detail. You might ask, why should I care about this? Well, identity theft is one good reason, because people might have taken your name, your information, and have rung up all kinds of charges, or you might have charges you don't even know about. Occasionally stores like a Target or a Kohl's or a Sears, any of those stores that you might get a credit card at, they make mistakes. Visa might make mistakes. Somebody might steal your Visa card and actually hurt your credit. Occasionally, you might have just an honest mistake where somebody with the exact same name as you uh, made some bad decisions with money, and that might be listed on your credit report. Credit reports do check multiple variations of your name, okay? And sometimes you're just not aware of payments you made. Maybe a bill went to a wrong address because you moved when you were young, okay? Coming out of college, a lot of students tend to move, so you might not even be aware. It's good to check these three credit reports and see what your credit rating is. You can do it once per year for each of these three major credit bureaus. All right, here's what a sample credit report looks like. I'm not going to get into detail, but they'll tell you various names, they'll tell you account information, and if you have any issues with these, if you have any questions about these, start with the credit bureau. If it's an Equifax credit report, call them first and say, why is this glitch on my credit? What does it say I owe money? I never even had an account with Nordstrom's. It doesn't matter, okay? You've got to figure out what the problem is and then address the issue. Here's why patience is valuable here. These companies deal with a lot of bad debts from people who aren't honest. So when you call and say, I'm an honest person, I never had a Nordstrom card, or that's not me, I don't owe that money, they hear that all the time from people who might not be honest. So you've got to take time, you've got to prove sometimes that it wasn't you, and make sure that you clean up any credit issues. If you're young, you should have a clean credit report. I don't want to scare you, but do your homework and be aware that this does happen sometimes to people. All right, who reads this thing anyway? Well, landlords, you're trying to apply for rent, they're certainly going to ask for credit, and they have the ability to check it. Employers, a lot of employers are checking your credit, see if you're a responsible person. All right, utility companies, you can't get gas or electric hooked up or cable TV hooked up sometimes unless you have a good credit rating. They won't even come out if you have really bad credit. They can't put it in your name. Hard to live without electricity. All right, credit card companies, of course, they're looking at these all the time. All right, so you've got to understand that your credit report, even if you don't understand it, can affect your financial life. All right, how do you get good credit? Well, pay your bills. Okay, if you have a floating balance on a credit card, pay at least the minimum required, if not all of it. Okay, stay within your credit limit. Don't borrow too much. Don't overextend yourself. The impact of good credit is it's going to be easier to borrow money in the future. You're going to avoid penalties and late fees because they do add up. And by the way, when the time comes when you need to buy a car and get a car loan or an even bigger loan like a home loan, the better interest rates are going to have a huge impact over the years of that loan. So good credit is very valuable. Bad credit, well, you miss payments or you're not paying the minimum balance, you're going to get bad credit ratings. You go way over your limit or you just have way too much debt, you're going to get a bad credit rating. The impact of bad credit is you can't borrow money at all sometimes, okay? Or you're going to lose money to late fees and penalties. It gets harder and harder to dig yourself out of a hole. And of course, when you go to borrow money in the future for a home or something like that, it's going to cost you more. You're not going to get good interest rates. So that's how you can avoid bad credit, is by avoiding those things. You want to build good credit, open bank accounts, manage them well, right? Don't bounce checks. That's what overdrafts are. Keep a healthy balance and make sure you have regular deposits. Most paychecks now can be automatically deposited in the bank, so you don't have cash in your hands. It's easy to spend cash when it's in your hand. Put it in the bank immediately. Take out only a limited number of credit cards. Pay your full balance every month, and if possible, pay it early. Okay, so pay down any credit cards you get. And of course, consistently pay back any loans, including student loans. All right, pay them on time or pay them early if you can. That's the key to getting a good credit score, and that will help you. Remember, it's like a financial report card. Earn good grades for yourself, and your financial life will be a whole lot better. Credit's not new. It's been here through the ages, and there's a lot of wisdom about this. Even Shakespeare talked about it. He talked again about losing money and friends if you were a borrower or a lender. Borrowing's not bad. You just have got to keep it within your control and within your financial abilities. Even Thomas Jefferson warned about debt as one of the greatest dangers for the public. And Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men on the planet, points out that it can take you a long time to build a reputation and just 5 minutes to ruin it. So bad financial decisions can ruin your credit for a long time, and it does take years to build it back up. So be smart about your credit. We hope you manage it well because that's a ticket to a lot of good financial benefits for you later on.